I'm Tony Taylor, and today I was fortunate to be a panelist on a webinar led by none other than celebrity chef Andre Rush. My co-panelists were from all different backgrounds. Today, we all fell on common ground, and that is racism. Racism in and out of the military. It was a very hard conversation that needed to be had. I hope that we can keep this discussion going, but also make the necessary tangible changes. I encourage you to comment on some of your own personal experiences. More than anything, I encourage you to make a personal sacrifice to help and eradicate racism forever.
3, 2, 1, we're broadcasting.
How are you guys doing? Today we're going to be here and we're going to talk about a serious issue that's been coming up not only in today's society, but also in the military. It's been around forever. So we're going to go over a few things. And what I do want you to do is to participate. This is all about not being quiet. Ask any questions that you like. For the panelists, we have our selected panelists up here. We have Jeremy, we have Tony with a Y, Tony with an I. We have Marine Rapper, which is Raymond, and we also have Shalinda. So ask any question that you prefer, right? For the panelists, I'll let you know that I wanted to be between 60 and 120 seconds. We have a lot of questions with a very short period of time, if we can keep it that level. We don't want to talk about anything that's political, that's going to get in the way. This is not a debate. This is open minds talking about serious things and being very ambidextrous. We come from different backgrounds, different lifestyles, and we're looking at it from one perspective. So I want everyone to be pretty open on it. Nothing's to be taken offensively on any part. I'm the moderator. I'll control the tempo. We'll go even with the flow. So we'll ask away, and anything that I say, we'll just kind of keep it going to the next one. So please introduce yourself.
My name is Jeremy. I am a 20-year Army veteran. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, raised in the suburbs, and I am biracial. My mother is white, my father is black. I have 7 children.
Thank you. Tony, with a Y. That's Tony with an I.
Oh, good to go. Hi, my name is Tony Williams. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I am originally from Memphis, Tennessee, but I reside in Washington, D.C. I'm a twin. She served in the Navy, and I come from a family with a military background as well.
Tony.
All right, Tony with a Y, I got it. I'm Tony Taylor. I was in the United States Marine Corps. I did 8 years in the military. As you guys can see, I am a black male. I have a mixed family, and I'm excited to talk about this. I mean, this is a conversation that's near and dear to my heart, so I look forward to the discussion.
Raymond.
Yo, what's up? My name is Raymond Lott, aka the Marine Rapper. I spent 10 years in the United States Marine Corps as a combat correspondent, serving with infantry battalions in Iraq and Afghanistan. I served with all types of cultures, and speaking on social injustices is something that I've done through my music, and I continue to do, and I show and prove by intermingling and interacting with different cultures today, and I'm so excited to speak my part on this.
Awesome. Shalinda, please.
Hi, I'm Charlinda Scales. I'm originally from Cookeville, Tennessee, born and raised. I reside in Dayton, Ohio now. I'm an Air Force veteran. I served on active duty for 10 years as an acquisitions program manager. I then joined the Air Force Reserves in 2015. I'm a contingency planner, and I'm a 4th generation veteran. My family has served in every single branch except for the Coast Guard, but we're still recruiting. It's a pleasure to serve. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for being here. I'll get a quick little spiel. I am Chef Andre Rush, and I am also a Army veteran. If people know me, I talk about joint forces because my family is also mixed with the military branches, along with myself. 20 plus years in the military, combat action, I've served under so many different caveats, and my advocacy, like all of you guys, are for suicide awareness, prevention, equal rights, MST, military sexual trauma, from kids to anything that has to involve with anything that's good involved in the military. And of course, my hat goes out to all the military spouses, because they are the hardest working out of all of us. So with that being said, let's get right into the first question. And it's going to become a little difficult sometimes, and it's going to be a little hard. So I want all of the audience to know that no question is a wrong question. So ask the question, we will answer and address them accordingly. So first question is perspective versus reality regarding, I'll say, the Black man and the Black woman, not only in the military, but in generalization.
Is that directed towards me?
That's for anyone. So right. I'm you first.
All right. This question is interesting because there is a perception of the Black male, a perception of the Black female, and that perception, right? That perception is, I'm not going off of anything that I think it is. I'm going off of things that have been told to me. I'm going off of my life experiences. That perception of the Black male, of the Black female, is that we are always pissed off and that we're tough, right? And I beg to differ. We're tough. I think we're tough just like any other race, but we're not always pissed off. We don't have a chip on our shoulder, right? But I mean, we're just like anybody else. I've heard certain things, not just from being in the military, but just being in the civilian workforce, that we're hard to work with. We're not hiring any African Americans at this time, because this has actually been said to me, because we already got a couple of them, right? So that's one thing that I want to dispel. We're just like anybody else, just like me. I am a Black male. I do weird stuff, like I like essential oils. I say that in an office full of people, and they're like, "What, you like essential oils?" Yeah, I love essential oils. I like hanging out with my wife. Sometimes we watch Lifetime movies. I'm just like anybody else. But yeah, that's definitely the perception, right? Definitely the perception. Definitely is not the reality.
Perception versus reality is a huge thing, and I'm going to go to, and I'll piggyback off of what Tony said. When I came to Washington, D.C. as a young soldier, they labeled me ABM. ABM, they say, hey, watch out for him. He's ABM, angry Black man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Young guy, I was a big guy, right? I looked intimidating. To this very day, I still look intimidating until you speak to me and you understand who I am and what I am. And one of my counterparts, which I was at the time the Black person that worked there, and he said it was perception, right? You're very intimidating looking. You can have a face and things, and I fought against that, even though I understood it. I'm from Mississippi, Columbus, a small town where I had the pleasure of being called the N-word and seeing my mother and father called the N-word, which is a whole different perspective of how it is right now, right? It is, like you said, perspective and reality, as I said with Tony, right? So with that, I didn't agree, but I had to accept what was said because it was reality of how people perceive me. Was it right? Of course not. Was it racism? Was it the military? Or was it just the gender profiling of a strong Black man? And I'll ask one of the ladies the same question.
Yes, we have to, in my experience, we've had to be very careful about our emotions and how we express them. Even if I'm not saying anything at all, I guess sometimes I can look like I'm concerned or I'm in a bad mood, but I'm not. I might just be deep in thought, So you're constantly having to police your outward emotions, how it's coming off on your face, your tone, and the way that you answer questions to make sure that it's not too loud or too forceful or sounds snappy. And sometimes if you're I consider myself a very to the point person. I don't mince words. And if you get if you feel a certain way, I've already told you, Chef Rush, sometimes I think people just feel conviction and they get defensive when I'm really just trying to be factual. So that's something that I know I've had to experience in my career. I've even been in situations where, unfortunately, I've been in an investigation before that was set off by a white peer. I'd never been in trouble in my entire career, not even so much as you're late kind of thing. So going through that and having to, in the end, have a general officer tell you that it was all about perception and how they had set up a perception of you that you had to get on the defense and show them the truth about you. I said, well, why wasn't the truth about me clear from how I handle myself every day? Why did I have to defend myself? So that's, I've been there. I've experienced that. It's real.
Thank you. Let me ask this question to Raymond, Marine Rapper. What's the first time you faced racism? When's the first time you faced racism?
Oh, man. Wow, it's hard to remember because I became aware of it when I was about, I would say, 7 or 8 years old. My mom has always been an advocate for preparing me for the worst. So like literally instead of bedtime stories, my mom would go, hey, when you go out and play, just to let you know, people may not like you because you're a different skin color. So you need to wear a belt. You need to speak well. You need to say sir if you run into an authority or ma'am. You have to conduct yourself like this. So the first racism I remember was like 8 years old. Like, when people made me aware of like my race, like, oh, I'm not going to play with you because my dad says not to play with you. But real racism, when I was called like the N-word in the Marine Corps, when I was in the Marine Corps. And one of my other boys, he was holding me back. We're about to get in a fight with this guy because he called me the N-word. But the guy that was holding me back was the other reporter with me. And he was like, dude, it's not worth it. After we get back, it was overseas too. He's like, after we get back from this deployment, man, you got to think about your career and you don't want to get in a fight and ruin up all your benefits and stuff. And luckily he calmed me down at that moment. But I was just like, I was so appalled because I felt like I did everything I could possibly do that my mom told me to do, which I thought would work, but I still got called the N-word. And my mom told me, hey, just speak well, wear a belt, keep your pants up over your butt, all that type of stuff. Don't be a thug. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't be that stereotypical perception of what the public might think you are. And it still didn't matter because they still looked at me as just another stereotypical black man in society that was up to nothing, even though I already, college educated and stuff. So that was my first experience with racism, was overseas when somebody called me the N-word. Like overseas, a fellow Marine, which was another thing altogether. But it was really sad and really disheartening, but it does happen.
True. Jeremy, being a mixed culture, right, race, and also having 7 kids with the same, I want to address the same question with you. And how do you deal with it with your kids? And I say deal with it in a perspective way of teaching them on moving forward, because they're going to experience it even a different aspect than other ones have.
Correct. Yes, I started very, very early with my children, letting them know and informing them of the way that things go on in the world today, because I don't know if my first experience that I had, I don't know if I could consider it racism or just a misunderstanding. I was in either the 3rd grade or the 5th grade, can't remember, but we had a parent-teacher conference. And I was sitting inside the classroom, and my teacher was a Caucasian woman, and my mother is a Caucasian woman. So I was sitting in the classroom, but from where I was sitting in the classroom waiting, I could see my mother sitting outside in the hallway. And my teacher walked in and out of the class quite a few times and just walked past my mother. Now, being that young of an age, I didn't want to, say anything or ask any questions because I was already in fear for my life because my mother had to come in for this parent-teacher conference. So I just sat there quietly. And then my mom sat out there for about 30 minutes in the hallway just waiting. And then finally, my mom, I guess, addressed her, and she said, I'm here for a teacher conference. I am Jeremy Still's mother. And I saw the reaction on my teacher's face, like, and so I think right at that point, I started to realize there's a difference. Something's different. Like, why did that take place? Why did that happen? And so my mom was very furious about it and explained it to me all when we got home, because up until that point, my mom never really said anything to me or talked to me anything about racism and all that. So I knew I had to start with my children at a very young age. And I just preach to my children more than anything is understanding. I think a lot of people right now, they ask for change and we ask for hope, but nobody asks for understanding, because we don't understand and we don't know what somebody has been through and what they have experienced to lead them to that point for them to feel the way that they feel. And you have to understand that. You have to have, I think one of the best things I learned in the military is consideration for others. And you have to be considerate for what they've been through and what happened to them, because you have no clue. We don't understand, and we don't know why some people are racist. They could have been a perfectly normal operating person and had they were colorblind, but they had a bad experience. Either they were jumped by a certain race, or they were treated badly or wrongly at a certain time by a certain race. So from that point on, yes, they're going to be standoffish, and that any human would do that, I think. And you got to have consideration and understand what they've been through and what they have experienced that led them to feel the way they feel today. And that's one thing I preach to my kids is, if somebody says something to you or somebody lashes out at you, don't lash back out at them, because you can't fight fire with fire. And you don't know what that person has been through, and you don't understand that person's life. So just take it in stride, and don't let that pull you down. Don't let that deter you from your goals and your dreams and what you're going to do.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We're having a lot of questions get ready to come in, so I'm gonna move this a little bit quicker, right? Because I know the time it's gonna go by really fast. So I'm going to call out some questions, and I'll just go down. And I'll start off with Tony, because you haven't spoken yet. My question is based on experience I have had with trying to talk about the concept of privileges with my friends, ignore themselves as privilege. This is from a white person, right? What is the best way to convene the concept and to concept them, especially when a lot of them do not have much experience with interacting with people, different people of races?
All right, that's a good question, and that's a question, honestly, that I've been thinking about this probably for the last week. What is the silver lining? With the last few incidents that's happened in this country, what's the silver lining? And I think now the silver lining is education. I think we have to be diligent in educating the people that we work with, the people that we live around, and explaining it to them. I mean, because if you see, I looked on LinkedIn the other day, and all the comments, from all the people that I've been interacting before, I'll be honest, man, they were freaking disgusting. It was stuff like, how come they just can't get over it? Why is, this country isn't racist? And that was like the big one. And it's just like, at first, initially, as a black man, somebody that's been through the perils of racism and been called the N-word, and just, going through all of this stuff professionally, personally, because of my skin color, it makes you mad initially, but then, you kind of got to take a step back. And that's what I've been doing. And that's taking that step back and detaching from it a little bit, and just realizing that it's education. You have to let them know what you're going through, what you've been through, and what that looks like, what that white privilege looks like. If I get pulled over, which at one point in time in my life, a couple years ago, I got pulled over 7 times in 1 month. 7 times in 1 month. How many tickets did I get? 0. Nervous as hell, pulled over, because for me as a black man, first thing that comes to my brain is, okay, I got to be still, or I could get my brains blown out, right? And that's the conversations that I've had with my nephews, that I've had with my son, right? The neighbors I don't know if they're having that conversation. You know, I don't know if they're having that conversation of, you know, when I walk into a store, you know, make sure that my hands are out so that the store clerk isn't thinking that I'm stealing something, right? That, to me, that epitomizes or portrays the white privilege. As a Black man, right, I feel like I'm haunted. And I don't have a problem saying that. I feel like I'm haunted. I feel like our race at many times is haunted. Not everybody feels that way, or in a situation to where they need to feel that way. So,
okay, great. Tony with an I. This question is going to be addressed towards you. I'm a fourth-year medical student going through school for the Air Force. I want to know if I have anyone who has seen any discrepancies in the military healthcare. How can I, as a future military doc, help get rid of those if they exist?
Hold on, can you repeat that last part? As far as
How can
being discriminated against within the healthcare system?
exactly? How can they
job or visiting, like as going in as a worker or as a active duty personnel?
They're active duty. They're going in as a military doctor,
Okay.
right, in the healthcare military. So they want to know how can the future, as future military doc, how can they get rid of those if they exist?
I mean, I always go to anything, to policies and procedures, find out what the standard operation procedure is, find out what your colleagues do and who to talk to in HR. If there's any actions being taken against someone, especially the doctor going in, he may want to know and check with HR with any cases that they may have and how they can be helpful and useful with pushing some laws for non-discrimination and things of that nature. Those are actions that I've taken in the past, but that's the only thing that I can think of.
Does anyone have a caveat to that? Any other panelists? Okay.
Yeah, I'll answer that. I think with healthcare, you know, with healthcare, just like with anything else, I mean, healthcare is indicative to our society. I think in order to combat that, you have to be sensitive. I'm not saying pay special attention to, you know, folks that look like me and look like everybody on this panel, but you have to be sensitive and you have to go into it with knowing that there's change that need to be had and be able to make that change.
Awesome. Shalinda, I'm an Asian American, and I remember the talk my mom had with me, like Raymond's mom, doing what I could not do as a stereotype. This is including primary speaking in English, and I wouldn't have an accent. So how would you address something like that? If you have an Asian American who has an accent and he's stereotyped for that accent?
Well, you know, you're talking to a Tennessean. So growing up in the Deep South, my first instance with racism, it wasn't racism, it was colorism. And I was in kindergarten. So that was my first experience with it. And so when I experienced it, it was racism, colorism, with a little bit of xenophobia mixed in. My maiden name is Nyanke, which is Nigerian. So I definitely empathize with, you know, having foreign ties to a foreign country or a foreign culture and trying to overcome that in America. Xenophobia has been around about as long as racism. What I would tell you is, you know, self-actualization is what saved me. Really, it's just years and years and decades of getting comfortable with who you are and being unapologetic about who you are. I have a country accent or I don't have a country accent. When I was younger, I got teased because I spoke white. Right? And I was like, what is that? I learned correct English. My mother grew up in Japan. She was a military brat, so she grew up on an Air Force base in Okinawa. So she learned textbook English, came back to rural Tennessee. She had me, and that's what I heard growing up. She's a single mother, and I couldn't imagine getting teased for having a correct accent, for having no accent, for speaking correct English. And so my point is, you can't waste time in your life being on the defense. At some point, your happiness will come when you accept who you are, all the things that are different about you, and you make the world adjust to you instead of you adjusting to the world.
Amen.
Well said. So, Jeremy, here's to you. With the program and policies currently in place now in regards to equal opportunities, do you feel there have been improvements to eliminate racism in the military, significant or minimal?
That is a difficult question for me to answer because throughout my 20 years in the military, the only interaction I had with what I felt like was racism was in basic training. After basic training, I never really experienced any real detrimental racism. There was my bunkmate underneath me in basic training got one of those, what do they call them, towel parties, soap parties. Anyway, he kept making mistakes and everybody had to pay for it. So, and this was in 1993, mind you. So it was a little different than today's military. But anyway, since I was the top bunkmate and I did not, jump off my bunk and go tell what went on and what happened, they pulled me in and labeled me a gangster. And so I wore a rubber band so that all the other drill sergeants knew who I was. And we lived on the 3rd floor in the barracks. I drug my mattress and my sheets every night down to the day room. And every morning they woke me up about 20, 30 minutes early, and I had to drag it all the way back upstairs and have my rack tightened by the time everybody got up. So that was the only real harsh, bad experience I had with racism in the military. Now, I have come across people where they, especially when I went into a leadership position where I had new incoming soldiers, and you could tell I've come in contact with soldiers who've never even seen people from another race, be it black, Asian, whatever it was. They've only been around their culture. I've had Asians who have never seen white or black people. And so, yes, of course, they're a little standoffish at first. It's a whole new world. It's a whole new thing going on for them. But once and this is my opinion, once we go through certain training and we go through, hours and hours and days and months of being together and go through hell and back together, those tend to become some of the best people that you can count on. I have come across people from the deepest South, and Caucasian people, and they walk. You can tell by the way they walk and the talk and the things they say that they haven't been around the African American culture. They haven't been around the Asian culture. They haven't been around these other cultures. And 2 months down the road, when you've been through all kind of sort of things with this person, this is the number one guy that you can count on. These actually turn out to become your best friends, and sometimes it makes me wish that part of the American way of life is you have to do 2 years in the military like they do in Korea, because it might make a little difference in this country. And that's how I feel about that.
Thank you for that. We're coming up to our first 0.30. I have a lot of questions coming, so let's try to move them on at least between that 2 to 3 minute time frame, because I want a few questions a lot of people can answer at once, because there are going to be a little bit more permanent questions. So Raymond, I'm sending this one to you. Do you feel the military ahead or behind the civilian world with regarding or addressing racism? Do you feel the military is ahead or behind in addressing racism in the military?
I feel like the military is way ahead in a lot of different ways. I feel like we could do better. But I feel like we're way ahead. Like, when they changed, they've been changing names of military bases from the old racist past to new names. Example, they named Camp Johnson. They renamed it to Camp Johnson after Montford Point Marine. That was a change, like changing things like that. Talking about the equality that should be ingrained in a military service member's soul in training. I feel like it could be a lot more intensive, because I know when we go over to Iraq and Afghanistan, we do cultural training, like don't lift your feet up, don't do this because you want to appease the local populace and respect their culture. I feel like we need to kind of adopt some of that more into the military as well as into the civilian populace as well. We need to do more cultural training. So I feel like we're both behind. I feel like the military is just more up in your face with it. And it's like, you will do this because this what makes a good soldier, airman, or Marine. I feel like it's more in your face. Like we have to do it as a duty. But I feel like both areas could have some more improvements done. That's how I feel.
Let me readdress the question to you, Raymond.
Yeah.
How do you feel as far as the military compared to civilian? Do you think the military is behind civilian in comparison to how civilian life treats racism to inside of the military treating racism? Oh,
okay. So if I was to say, I would say the military is ahead because they're proactive and they're about action and they actually are doing something about it. They don't fall for it. They're putting up procedures, SOPs in place. They're putting up different cultural trainings and things like that. So military is definitely ahead of the civilian populace because it's like, that's what we have to do. But I feel like we could all do better.
Can I add on to that, Chef?
Yeah, of course.
So, just looking at our country as a whole, right? We had President Truman, I think it was 1948, he desegregated the armed forces. And so just like Raymond was saying, we're driven by policy and law, which I think helps us because we just follow it and we move forward. And then the rest of the country desegregated around 1954. So just in the dates itself, the military desegregated before America desegregated. But what that led to, right, was our grandfathers coming back from Korea to a country that had not yet desegregated. And they're out there wearing signs, I'm a man. And I know from my grandfather's perspective, it was really confusing. Like, how did we go fight right next to you and then we can't even eat next to you when we come back to America? So I know that from my grandfather's experience, but I think that having those rules, and that's when we talk about institutional racism, it starts with changing our laws and changing the way that we operate as a country and the rules that we live by and the bills and everything, all the way down in the court system, the way that we operate. That is what leads sometimes to changed behavior, but there's still a long way to go. The Air Force just came out with a study that just came out the other day that said that the African American airmen were punished disproportionately more than other races, and they have evidence of that. So there's still a long way to go. It doesn't eradicate racism. It still exists. Those biases still exist, but yeah, I think we're still ahead of the curve. And I think that's why we as military people should take the lead to help the country.
Hey, Chef, can I say something to that as well?
Yes.
All right, so with that being said, and Ms. Gale's talking about like on the local level of working, it really does take the citizens within the state and their country in order to like move things along as well. But we need to literally change how we perceive things with stereotypes and with everything else. Propaganda has carried on, and we've seen it this past 3 weeks and more in the Black community, especially in the Black veteran community. You have veterans who were active duty in the military and wasn't able to get compensation and pension until the late 90s, and they served during the Vietnam War. These things, when it comes to systemic or systematic racism, is stem literally from people not thinking that Black veterans or people of color even deserve these things. So I think it really does start with not educating people on it, but people actually getting out there and reading stories about Black veterans, reading stories about where we came from in order to understand and to build from that. We're going to completely have to just change how we act, how we do things, and how we relate to other people as well in order to see that change significantly.
Very true. Jeremy, as a veteran entrepreneur, what are some of the barriers that you have witnessed within the veteran community?
I'd have to pass that question to one of these great people here because I am not an entrepreneur. I don't own any business or run any business.
Oh, okay. Tony? Tony,
Yeah, I actually have my own business, and it's a startup. And one thing that I notice is, and that's just for myself. I didn't start off with a whole bunch of capital. I haven't, gone and try to get a whole bunch of loans. So I'm just kind of in the process of it. So I haven't necessarily experienced anything as far as anything that I can really speak on.
Shalinda, I want you to address that question.
All right. So yes, I actually own two companies. My primary company is Mutt Sauce. We sell all-purpose tomato-based sauce. I've owned the company since 2013, and some of the challenge that I've experienced is one, being connected, right? So I liken it to being the ROTC cadet versus the academy cadet, right? When you come out of graduation and you go into the real world, it's almost like a fraternity that you belong to that will take care of you. That's almost how I see being a minority entrepreneur versus not being one. You have connections that are built into society that makes it easier to find someone to help you. I know that for minorities, there are things that are inherent to our culture where you're looking for a certain type of connection, someone that not only owns a business, but they understand you, they understand the way you think, they understand where you come from, they understand that you have grinded or that you came from a single mother or that this is it and you put all into it. Like they understand the struggle. And so trying to find that person in a niche like veteran entrepreneurs as a needle in a haystack. And so that's where I think that inherent advantage comes in is to find the person that I can relate to who can mentor me properly is a lot harder.
And I'll caveat with you, and I thank you for sharing that because I address you for that reason is because in the veteran entrepreneurship, as entrepreneur, whether it trends over to military or civilian life, you need to have yourself with like-minded people that are equally diverse in thinking, but they have to be the right person. It doesn't matter about their rank or their structure. You don't know their background. And someone said that earlier. You don't know where these people came from. I know, Jeremy, you said you don't know where they came from, their experience, their knowledge. And it may be that person that's making that six-figure and is very successful may not be successful for you. So it's very important. And I've seen so many failures in the veteran community, even with myself, with trusting and thinking that other vets will be on the same level that I am, and it hasn't happened that way. It doesn't happen that way. So it's a point of taken, and it needs to be seriously thought about. Here's an open question for all of you guys. Are there any particular groups or demographics that you feel have more capital, whether physical, political, or cultural, that you can or need to help influence the BLM movement most effectively? So the Black Lives Matter movement effectively. Anyone? No? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It went, the mics are off. Can you hear me, Jeremy?
Yes, I can hear you.
I hear you too, Chef.
Okay, Shalinda's mic's off.
I think we all can hear you. I just don't think any of us could address the question.
No, I saw
Yeah.
your mic's off. Yeah.
Yeah, Chef. Yeah, my mic is on. That's a tough question. I was sitting there, I was looking at it before that, how can I answer that? I have no idea which group, has, capital, whether it's physically, politically, or culturally. I just know, I don't know, man. That's a hard one. I tell you,
I'll answer it. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Raymond. I think the group that can substantially really contribute to the uprise of the Black community, aka, you know, Black Lives Matter or whatever you want to call it, are Black people. It's us. That's how I feel. So that's why I didn't answer, because I was just like, why do I want to lean on somebody else to help me? I'm just, that's how I am. Like, I feel like we need to strengthen ourselves from within. We need to build up all these Black businesses, this Black entrepreneurship, this positivity. There's a lot of hard truths that I've been hearing during this whole time. There's been a lot of people who aren't affected, non-Black people, a lot of white people saying, hey, you're worrying about, you know, the death of George Floyd or the police brutality on other Black people and unfortunate deaths that come out of that, but you guys aren't talking about the Black on Black crime. You guys aren't talking about your families. You're not talking about the generational wealth that you guys should be building up. And I'm just like, you know what, that's a hard truth, but we do need to work on ourselves internally. We need to make ourselves the best possible people that we can. Because unfortunately, if we aren't respecting ourselves, we're not going to get anybody else to respect us. So when you ask me what group is strong enough, mentally strong enough, physically strong enough, economically strong enough, I say us. That's how I feel.
Thank you for that, Raymond. So here's a question now for the open panel. What is your personal plan to combat institutionalized and systemic racism?
Oh, I got that. I do it every day. I do it every day. Shout out to Raymond. But I do this every day with my job and what I do in DC. Combat it every day. When someone makes a comment, you check them where they're at. Don't be afraid. When you're shaking in your boots and you're nervous, go ahead and confront it. I think when Tony with the Y spoke on educating, you know, white people on white privilege, or certain ways on educating them on who we are, I think that is a very important, that every teachable moment is a teachable moment, but every time we shouldn't have to educate. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be every time I look at this person, I think they're going to rob me, or I think that they don't have my best interests at heart, or they don't have enough money to pay for this certain materialistic item and things of that nature. And like I said before, it just starts with your mind and how you come with people. If you're confident and you stand your ground and you let them know, hey, this is not what this is, regardless of their background, their culture background, it says a lot about you. You start seeing yourself improve. You start doing positive things and extending that out to other people. And I think living your truth and speaking that on a daily basis, whether you're at work, whether you're in front of a high executive, whether you're in front of your best friend just kicking it, I think you should keep that same energy when you're confronting people and letting them know, hey, that wasn't right. Whether you're being a sexist, whether you're being a misogynist, whether you're being a racist, whether you're being discriminative against somebody, being a part of the LGBTQ IA community, we got to check ourselves before we can check somebody else. So that self-reflection starts with you. So every day you go in that job, every day you open up your business, that mindset should be, how do I want to be treated today? And that's how you should treat people. And that same energy, you're going to start meeting people and being able to have that open forum and have that peace and be able to talk about these difficult conversations.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's something that when I was growing up, my mom would tell me, people are going to treat you the way that you let them. And that's kind of how I live. If I hear any part of a conversation that has anything to do with discrimination, I check it immediately. First, because sometimes I'm a little bit hyper vigilant to it. I ask the question, what did you mean by that? Right? Did you mean to disrespect me? Did you mean to disrespect him? Did you mean to disrespect her? And then we talk about it. And I educate them on why it was wrong what you said, or why it was wrong in the action that you chose to make it. So again, education. I think education is the best method. And sometimes, just like she said, sometimes it's not worth the time. Sometimes you just got to move on, because some people, they don't want to see it. They know it exists. Either they don't want to see it, or they don't give a damn fixing it or fixing themselves.
Can I touch on that real quick?
Of course.
This goes back to what I was saying earlier about trying to understand other people and have consideration for others, and try to learn and understand and figure out what they've been through. But, you know, I'm a person that admits my faults, and I am still myself. I still find myself from time to time judging people myself. And I give you a prime example real quick. I got pulled over a couple months ago by a Texas state trooper, and he stepped out of the car, and he was a short Caucasian man, and I could see in my rear view, and he had the cowboy hat on. The very first thing I said to myself was, oh, man. You know, this officer walked up to my door, and he said, how you doing? And I said, I'm doing fine, officer. I just want to let you know I have a weapon in my vehicle. And he said, okay, well, I'll make a deal with you. If you don't reach for yours, I won't reach for mine. And I said, hey, deal. He talked about why he stopped me. And then he said, all right, just slow it down. There's a lot of people on the road today. And he let me go. When this man first stepped out of the car, I judged him. And this was just a few months ago. You know what I mean? And I felt horrible for the rest of the day. I felt horrible because there was no right for me to judge that man when he stepped out of that vehicle. So like I said, these are things that I still go through with myself today, and I'm working on it every day. And I think when you're able to admit your own faults and you know, progressively work on them, it'll get better. But we have to understand, even if this gentleman would have came at me a different way, did he come at me that, you know, a different way just because I was black? Or did he just pull over an African-American male an hour before and it went totally crazy? You know, like totally the opposite, you know, the other way than this traffic stop line. So it just comes down to understanding and trying to have consideration for others and what they've been through and what they've been through. Because when you walk, you know, you're walking through the aisle of Walmart or whatever, and you're a white male and you see two or three black males coming down the aisle towards you, the first thing you say to yourself is, uh-oh. But you haven't even given the situation a chance. It hasn't even evolved to that yet. You know what I mean? But your first perception right away is, uh-oh. At least give it a chance. Give the situation a chance. These guys might walk up to you and say, hey, pat you on the back and say, hey, we're doing this later. You want to hang out with us? Or they might recognize you from somewhere else and say, hey, you know, and you just never know. So you got to give every situation, every experience, everything a chance and opportunity.
Exactly. Chef, I just want a quick caveat with that. Basically, it basically summed it up. That's what I was saying, like, take care of your own house, take care of your own, but also that whole perception versus reality, it's a two-way road. It's a two-way street. We can be like, oh, okay, let me teach you how to not to be racist. Let me teach you about my culture. Let me teach you how to not discriminate against me. But there's also that part where we have to relearn and teach our own selves and be cognizant of the fact that we have our own insecurities and we are judging as people, as human beings right off of the bat. So I feel like in addition to all this education, we also need to put a little bit of emotional intelligence training in there. I actually took some, and it revealed a whole bunch of insecurities that I may have with myself. And that's why when I go out, I'm just like Charlinda was saying, hey, I'm not going to let nobody tear me down. I'm in my own world. I'm my own superhero. I'm going to keep doing what I got to do. I'm not going to let nobody hold me down. I walk like that, but I also walk like not judging people, because that shows an insecurity within yourself. You're jealous of something, or you think that they have an up on you somehow. You know, just because somebody's wearing cowboy boots and he's an officer of the law and you're a black man doesn't mean he's racist. It just means that he's being free. That's his freedom. If he wants to wear cowboy boots in America, he can wear cowboy boots. That doesn't mean he's racist. I've actually ran into some of the most loving people down in Texas that wear cowboy boots, and like the least race, they invite me to their house and stuff like that. So all the time, and they're like totally different than me, and they just love the fact that I'm different and they're different, and we get to share culture. So in summary, I think we both need to do a lot more growing and a lot more soul searching and a lot more adding to our emotional intelligence as a community, a Black community, as well as externally.
Thank you for that. So now we're going to go and kind of speed it up a little bit more so, and we're going to get a little bit more dirty. We have like 17 messages, new messages. I want the answer to be a lot quicker and brief, right? And I'm going to caveat off of each and every last one of you guys saying, I put up a post the other day that said I have no white friends, right? Because one of my longtime friends attacked me for a post that I put up that was saying that I don't see color. It's a metaphorically statement, right, where I think Celinda said where emotions come into play. People wanted me to see anger and despair and lash out and support looting and rioting and saying that it's ours and, you know, taking people's lives or taking people's things. Not saying it's black people or white people or Asian or anyone, but it's stigmatic where it's going to go towards us regardless. And that's the truth and reality. Just like anger, right? You become angry quicker than you'll fall in love. So that's just the truth of it. And when you look at your fellow man or woman and how is it being very diverse in this day's culture, and with me saying what I said, they immediately called me Uncle Tom. I blocked and left 500,000 people off because I don't need that energy in my circle. If you didn't listen to my whole message in its entirety, because it's not about you and it's not about me, it's not about any one of you guys in the panel. It's about Shalinda's new little baby that she has. It's about your 7 kids, Jeremy, that is going to lead this world into a better place. And we're the ones that's putting that platform down right now. So the question to all you ones is, each one of you have spoken, what do you do when you have your own race that combats you for trying to be positive?
Can I answer that real quick? Can I go? Is that all right? Yeah, racism comes from every race. Every race has people that are racism amongst the ranks. I've been told several times that I talk like them, I walk like them. Once they figure out who my mother, is or was, once they find out who I'm married to, or once they see my children, or whatever the case may be, I've been told I walk like them, I talk like them. But I think one of the most things I've been told is I can't really understand a black man because I'm not a whole black man. I'm part of them. And that just throws me for a loop. I don't understand. And I'm trying to understand to the fullest, but I don't understand, first of all, why there is a them. What happened to us? We as a whole. But when people approach me with that, I don't waste a lot of time and energy on racism. It doesn't matter what race it comes from. It doesn't matter how severe it is. I'm only allotted so much time and energy in this world, and I have 7 children to bring into this world. I have a beautiful, amazing wife who just passed her NCLEX and found out today, so she is a registered nurse. Big up to her. But I spend all my time and energy with that. So me personally, the way I deal with racism is I try to spend as little time and energy when it's directed towards me. I try to spend as little time and energy on that as I can, because it's I have better things that I need to do right now, more important things that need to be accomplished as far as my household.
Okay.
All right.
So next person, let's keep it at between a minute and a half. All right, we got a lot. We have 20 plus questions that we have to answer right now. Tony?
No, I was just gonna. I saw your post that you made. First thing that I read, I read, I don't have any white friends. The first thing that came in my head was, oh man, they're about to come at him. And then I read deeper, right? And then I said, okay, I see what he was saying when he said what he said, and I get that. I get that 100%. But what I think a lot of people, the reason that they started calling you the names that they were calling, I think they felt like that you weren't paying any attention to your own race, and they felt like that it was more of negative when you were trying to be positive. I felt exactly 100% what you were saying. And I think a lot of people, when they hear I don't see color, they hear that you don't see me, which is not the case, and that's not how I take it. I applaud you for making that bold statement, because I knew that you're going to get some controversy for doing so, and that's what I think that's why we're here today. But I just go back to education. I think that's how I deal with it. I go and I educate people. I've had to educate people in my family regarding it. I mean, you have racism on both sides. There's black people that are racist. There's white people that are racist, Chinese people that are racist. We all have it a little bit. Not we all, not saying me, but culturally we have it. But I think education is important. And some of the stuff you just got to ignore.
And that's very true. And I'll tell you right now that I said that caption for a reason, and I made it uncomfortable. I'm here to make everyone uncomfortable, even with the questions that I'm asking, because they're going to be very direct questions. I mean, I see colors like a rainbow, you know, just because I don't see color. And I say if each one of us were blind and we only had our voices to lead each other, we'll all still be totally different. But you have to understand that we all still have to be a team on that perspective of it. So
Right.
I love my race. I grew up, and the fact of the matter is that I probably had more racism than anyone that's on this panel right now because of my background, being able to see the things I've seen and go to places I've gone, and even being in positions that I've in, because I was positions I have been, fortunately, in some very diverse situations. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Tony the same question. Tony?
All right, I'm here. What was the question again? I'm sorry, I got caught up.
How do you handle when you have your own race thinking that you are not on their side and you're trying to be very streamlined?
Okay. So I'm not going to say race because I think that's just a 1900s, 1800 term. I don't know. But culture, someone from my own background, my own culture, they may have an issue with how I express myself but through this time right now that we're dealing with. How do I combat that if it's someone from my own background? I just honestly, from my personal background, they're already educated. A lot of times when they come at me for stuff, they're more curious to know what other resources are available. You know, what else can I do to assist or things like that. It's always with asking questions on how they can get more knowledge versus like attacking or feeling some type of way.
What about now? I'm gonna stay with you, Tony.
Okay.
Now, that's a generalized question. What about now with what's going on in today's society? Let's say even with the truth of the matter with George Floyd.
Okay.
Right. So you do have a definite situation that's happening in today's society, and it's big. So how would you do with that? How would you address that?
So I would address it with what I've been doing, expressing my disappointment, my frustration by posting other stories of other Black lives that's been shattered and destroyed through the systematic system, through this judicial system. I would just put it out there and I would celebrate those that are doing what they need to do, whether it's protesting. And what people have done and what media has done is taking protesting and rioting and putting it parallel to each other, and that's not a thing. I do not support people rioting and messing up people's small businesses and destroying neighborhoods, but I do support a group of people who have been oppressed for so long and feel some type of way doing peaceful protests. I think that I would celebrate it in any way that I can and support those businesses and those individuals or organizations to my best ability, but to put good knowledge out, not misinformation, not stereotypical things, not they're Black, you know they're going to do this, they're ignorant stuff. I put in new knowledge, who you can connect with. You have Tamika Mallory, you have Amanda Seals, who are activists and people out, Black women out here doing these things. So I think it's better to connect with the source of good information and ask yourself, how does this relate to me? Because everyone is different. I'm more of what Ms. Scale was talking about earlier. I'm more of a, I tell you up straight up what I want and what I need and what type of information that I'll post on my social media. If my family or anybody in my subculture does not appreciate that, then I'll ask the questions to get to the bottom of it so that we can have an understanding. This is how you communicate properly. So.
Shalinda?
There's a lot wrapped up in there. It's deep, right? But what I've been telling people in times, especially now, is big ups to emotional intelligence. That is huge. That also ties in with self-actualization, right? When you know yourself, you're less concerned about what people think about you. And so you're less on the defense and playing into the stereotypes that ultimately people will have for you no matter what. But I need people to stay focused on the eradication of systemic racism and racism as a whole. I think what I've seen, especially on social media, is this whole, if you don't say someone's name, so if you don't say the police officer's name, you're 77 Doran, if you aren't evoking his name, then you don't care about him as much as you care about George Floyd. And so everybody's back and forth saying, who do we love more? I'm like, I want to have a singular focus. I have a Black son. I just gave birth at the beginning of a pandemic. And this is more of a concern to me than COVID-19 right now. I want for someday when my son gets older, for him to look at racism and think that it was a behavior of a less evolved society. Like we are Neanderthals obsessed over tans. How deep your tan is versus mine. I don't have one, so we're just going to dismantle a country based off of something that petty. Years, 400 years of it. I want us to evolve, not just Black people. I want to see the whole world evolve past it. And what can I do to educate my son and help him be comfortable in himself, and for me to be a good example in society? So when a white person asks me about a racial question, I'm going to approach you as if, oh, you know what? I'm very open. I'm very calm. Let's talk about it. And I want you to see that this is beneath me. I'm going to educate you, and we're going to move on because there's bigger things to worry about. You know, so I have to do my part as a Black person to be approachable to white people. I've been what they call the token my entire life, whether it was in honors classes or as the only Black person. I've been the only Black person in so many situations, but you accept that and you say, hey, it's like my faith. If I'm the only Christian you ever meet, and it's the only time you're going to learn about the teachings of Jesus Christ, it should be in the way I behave, sometimes not what I say, but how I carry myself, that you're going to walk away with in your judgment on Christianity. So if you're going to run into me and have a discussion on race, I want you to walk away and say, you know what? Everything I thought was wrong, because this went way better. This conversation went way better. This interaction went way better than all the stereotypes that I had ready to fire at her.
Thank you for that.
I want us to evolve.
That we will, hopefully, eventually, and we will. So now we're going to go into another line of questions. I'm going to go down the line to each one of you guys. I'm going to start with Raymond, right? Again, we have a lot of questions, so give me at least about 60 seconds or more, okay? Actually, I take that back. I'm going to start with Jeremy, and then I'm going to go to Raymond. So I'll call your name out as I go, because this question is directed straight to Jeremy. Jeremy, what is it like to see all races in your unit and needed the help or understanding? I know you are a heartfelt person. Was it difficult for you?
No, it wasn't difficult at all. So they're asking me what was it like to work and be around and see all the different races in certain units, like in my military unit.
Was it difficult for you?
No, it wasn't difficult at all. For me personally, I am a very, very open person. Like I've said 100 times, I always take consideration for others, and I put that as one of the most foremost and forefront things when I deal with people. And my 20 years in the military was actually the most amazing experience to work with all those different cultures and blend them together and watch them all come together. It's a dream that most people, I think, especially those not in the military, it's something to be around and work with. It's a dream that people who haven't experienced dream of. And it's an amazing thing to come to work with it all, to either whether you're in the lower ranks or when you work your way up into the leadership positions. It's amazing to watch it all come together and to watch it operate. Beautiful thing.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. This is for Tony with an I. Female version. How will you believe the military has treated Black women, specifically as it relates to job opportunities and upward momentum in their careers, and what else can be done?
Well, I can speak on the Marine Corps part. I think that the Marines treated the African-American women depending upon where you were stationed. But far as like moving up in ranks and promotion and things of that nature, I can only speak on my own experience, not as the whole African American women population in the Marine Corps. But for me, it was very difficult because I was the one that didn't follow orders. But it was only orders that where people were being sexist or making comments or had something to do with sexual harassment and things of that nature. So it's very difficult when you have so many hats. And I was a leader, still am a leader, but I had a lot of hats when I was in the Marine Corps, and I took on a lot of things just so I can equal out and be validated by a male-dominated arena. So for me, it was difficult, but it was challenging. And it was like one of the best experiences I had in my life because I was able to learn something from that and take what somebody else may take as a negative thing or a step back. I just use it as some momentum to move forward and assist any other junior Marine that was having any issues, take them under my wing and make sure that they were secure and they were good to go and they were good for their promotions, whether they were going up for boards, whether they wanted to become a trainer, because I train Marines for deployment and things of that nature. It's just that I continue to elevate my status and I use that to mentor and promote that for my junior Marines. But it's not easy at all.
This is for the ladies. How can Black men veterans and active duty do more to support Black women veterans and active duty members? Shalinda?
No, I think that starts outside of the military, right? I think that we as a people need to do a lot more to heal our relationships between Black men and Black women. And then from there, when you come in, I know I want to give a shout out to the Air Force has a group called Firebirds, and they're a group of African American Air Force female officers. So we do our part to uplift each other and give each other encouragement and opportunities to the younger ones. I think that even the military as a whole, the Air Force, we have the MAFO group, which is military African American officers. So it's a mixed group, and we do our part to uplift each other and to give each other shout outs. And if you get promoted, we're going to help you out. And there's even some retired high ranking officers in that group who will give us mentorship after they've retired. So I've seen it. I think it's just continuing the conversation and continuing to be open and tear down those walls, because I think that there's a lot of things that we have between us, like the men aren't allowed to be sensitive and the you're not allowed to cry. That was a big rule in my family. You're not allowed to cry. So if there's something where you're on duty and you feel vulnerable, that Black man who's probably in your unit should be someone that you can go to and talk to, especially if he's the only other Black person. But those stereotypes, those barriers that we have outside of the military, they kind of leak into that environment. So I think we have to start outside and then work our way in.
All right. The next question. Do you think the military leadership has done an adequate job of punishment and holding people accountable in the ranks for racism, relic, or in more extreme circumstances, being involved with groups tied to white supremacy? Raymond?
No. And I say that because there's been lots of situations to where there's been like diet racism. Like, for example, in the Marine Corps, they would be like, everybody's green, but then they would call me, and it's not necessarily the Marine Corps itself. Like, people that were in the Marine Corps would say, instead of calling me green, they call me dark green. Mm. Or if there was a group of white guys, they wouldn't say, oh, that light green guy right there. They would say Jones or Smith or whatever his name was. They wouldn't say my name. They would call me the dark green Marine. I've actually had my officer call me the N-word. I've had other troops call me the N-word, whole bunch of stuff like that. And they kind of was just like, hey, think about yourself, think about your career. And in a lot of situations, and I was lower enlisted at the time, so I wasn't educated on that point. So I feel like the senior enlisted also need to sit down with everybody and be like, hey, these are your rights. This is the culture that we're trying to project. We're not trying to project anything other than this. We're all Marines. We're not a color. None of that. So I feel like we could do a better job. As much effort that we train and we educate our troops before we go overseas and teach everybody else about the culture overseas, we need to do that here. We need to do that right here. And that's why everybody from the military to civilians are feeling the weight of this whole resurgence of racism being on the forefront. It's because everybody's feeling it, and it needs to be changed. So I feel like they're not doing enough, and they need to do more classes on culture, specifically American cultures, especially the minorities. So it needs to be changed.
Jeremy, this is going to be for you. Again, we have about 35 questions that's going down. So give me some quick bullets, please. I'm a former Army Green Beret who now teaches social studies in an urban school district in New York. I usually ask a question for my students: why would I want to serve in the military? I'm Black. As a white male, how should I respond to these questions? I try to explain from my perspective, but I would love to hear yours. Thank you for doing this.
Best way I can answer that is I would tell them that the majority of the military does not see color. Of course, like Raymond said earlier, you have your few out there, and that's in every organization. There's not an organization on this planet that you're going to go into where everybody is on the same sheet of music. It's impossible. So you're going to have your ones here and there and there and there, but majority across the board, and this is my opinion, I feel like that is an excuse not to join the military. And now, unless, again, at the same time, I don't know what that certain individual has been told or what he has been through. Maybe he has a father or uncle or brother or cousin who's been in the military and experienced racism on the highest level. So, I don't know. But again, me personally, I would tell him, racism in the military, is there racism in the military? Yes, there is. And you have to do your best when you are confronted with it to deal with it at that point. And there's a right way to deal with it, and there's a wrong way to deal with it.
And I 100% agree with that. So there is racism in the military. Of course, I'm going to be a true epitome of having racism in the military. I had a story where I fought against a general, high-ranking general, and everyone, Black and white, went against me because it was rank structure. Right? Me being just this enlisted guy going against someone so powerful. Now, not saying if he was racist or if it was just intimidation or it was just that individual person, you have to understand on that perspective of it. But the main point and gist of is for a Black man going to the military, getting their education, making a better life, having things where they can improve themselves and do that. It's going to be hard because I think someone said, Raymond said earlier that, or Tony said, I was also not the nicest person, right? I had a lot of things that were going on inside of me, but we have to understand and teach our young men that they are the ones that's going to make it and improve and can change the whole system of the military. That's the reason why they really need to be in the military. They can be that person that can be, let's say, an Obama, that can be a Martin Luther. It can be that impactful and change the history of how it's going about.
Can I add something real quick, Chef? Real quick.
Of course.
I would probably also ask that same student or students, well, do you want to go into the NFL? Do you want to go into the NBA? Do you want to play Major League Baseball? Because how many kids are going to tell you, oh, no, I don't want to do that? But there's racism in the NHL. There's racism in Major League Baseball. There's racism in professional football. There's racism in professional basketball. So there's race. You're going to come into contact with it no matter what you do in your life. And again, like I said, at the end of the day, that's an excuse just not to join that in.
That's true.
Yeah, can I add to that too, Chef? I was going to say kind of along the same things, right? When I first joined the military, I had a host of people that told me, why the hell would you want to join the military? You're Black, right? And me, myself, almost used that as an excuse. And I think it was the best decision that I ever made in my life, right? I wouldn't be where I am at today if it was not for the United States Marine Corps. However, there is racism in the military, just like there's racism out of the military. It's the same. Just because you drive on the base, that doesn't mean that it gets heightened or it gets lowered, right? But no matter what, you're still going to have to do with it. And it is a great launching pad for young men and young women. So I would encourage that individual, the teacher, to tell them to seek out a mentor. That's what I did. I had a mentor that explained it to me. Actually, my mentor was my recruiter. He told me, yeah, little bruh, there is racism in the military, but do this, do that, right? And it prepared me. So I would tell that individual to get a mentor.
Thank you for that. Next question. How can we begin to address systemic racism when most of it has been institutionalized at this point? There are many racist laws still intact, but there's a huge gap in generations' wealth. Additionally, we lack these connections that could get these Black companies off the ground. For the entrepreneurs out there, how can we begin to educate people to fix these issues?
Well, I'm a huge cheerleader. I'm telling you, if you ever want to just feel like you can conquer the world, just call me and I'll have you jumping off a cliff in a heartbeat and building a parachute on the way down. So I think that we need to approach that with our young people and say, look, I need you to become a lawmaker. I want you to be a judge. I want you to join the police academy. I want you to become a cop. You know, I want you to go into these roles that for whatever reason is disproportionate with minorities and level the playing field when it comes to laws. Look at our Supreme Court. I mean, we have to do our part to encourage them to take up these roles that will make things more diverse and will level out the playing field for us. It's not going to be overnight, but that's the thing that they have to be encouraged. Just like I had to be encouraged growing up that, you know, my Black was beautiful, that I didn't have to have lighter skin to be a good looking Black person. You know, that stuff we do to each other so young. So we have to take our children and we have to eradicate it, starting with our youth and starting with those who are going into the workplace and saying, take that job that you normally wouldn't take because there's a whole bunch of white people there. It's okay to be the only Black person. But because you're there, things will change. You know, you have to just tell them to be the person and be motivated. We can, you know, it has to start with us encouraging them.
Chef, can I chime in real quick? Because I saw something on the chat here that referred to the last question. And it stated that the question that was asked about the students is maybe the student was addressing, why should I fight for this country? Maybe that's why they were saying, why should I join the military? I'm Black. So I just want to touch that point real quick because I feel it's a bit kind of important as well. If that was the way the question was asked, you know, why would I fight for this country because I'm Black? I would answer that with, you have three choices. You can be part of the problem, part of the solution, or you can do nothing. And I would leave it at that because you can either sit back and do nothing. You can not join and you know, go off and do something else and become a part of the systemic problem that's in place by making bad choices and wrong decisions, or you can join the military, rise up in the ranks, or even, you know, just join the military, get past basic training, get in there, and you could be the voice that they needed. You could be the voice that's going to be heard. You could be the one that starts putting changes this SOP or changes this policy or whatever the case may be. You never know where your path is going to lead you. So again, you can be part of the problem, part of the solution, or you can do nothing.
So here's a question for you guys. In basic training, a lot of my African-American battle buddies were separating themselves by their skin tone, saying light skin is better than dark, which we've heard that question before. It was very confusing for me as a Caucasian person to see that. Why such separation within the same culture?
Colorism. It happens in all subcultures, especially with being lighter skinned. If you want to talk about the African American culture being enslaved, you had your house Negro and your field Negro, and that's how it was. Therefore, within the culture, when you're talking about going back home to your family and things of that nature, people were still separating you based on how you look. If you light skin, you'd have straight hair. You can pass as white and these other things. Colorism in young Black boys is real. My brother is way lighter than I am, and he experienced a lot of bullying and things of that nature from other Black boys because he was lighter. They just felt like he thought he was better off bat. So I think it really stems from when we were here and being enslaved and picking up on all that as well. That's definitely the background of it, and that's colorism as well.
Raymond, same question.
Because I feel like not only does it have a historical tie to slavery and all of that, but it's also everybody wants to be the best in some type of category. And if you can't be the best amongst everybody, at least you want to be the elite amongst your own category. So that happens a lot. And then there's stereotypes that come along with it. And the acceptance of society. A lot of times, light-skinned Black men are looked at more favorably than darker-skinned Black men because they're more accepted within the other communities. That's what happens. However, that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of like psychological and historical and stereotypical stuff that's going around, and I feel like all that needs to be separated. The reason why they're doing it, just they're trying to be the best in their category. But I just feel like all that needs to be eradicated too. And just like Charlinda said, like all Black is beautiful, not light skin, not dark skin, all Black is beautiful. And we just all need to celebrate it to the most. And that probably was more of a little isolated incident because it didn't happen in my boot camp. But I just feel like we can all do better because I don't even like that. I feel like all Black is beautiful, dark skin, light skin, everything.
Thank you. So here's a question for you guys, and I'm going to give you a 60 to 90 seconds for this question, right? And I want each one of you guys to answer this question. Current climate, and is there current climate situation that's going on right now in today's, excluding the COVID, of course, we're talking about what's happening with the riots and peaceful protesting and all the things that's going on. How do you feel about it? And is there any good coming from it? Jeremy, start. Or Tony, you can start. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the current climate. I mean, we got a bunch of stuff going on in our world. We just got out of the whole COVID-19, or not even out of it. And I think one of the ladies said that this crisis is bigger than COVID-19, and I agree. I agree with that. I look at TV and I see everything that's going on, and then I see all the different responses. Why they're tearing up the community, and what does that do? And all I can think in my head is, people are pissed off. And again, it goes back to what good can come out of it. We're talking about it. We're talking about it today. I log on to Amazon, and I'm seeing that Amazon is giving $10 million to all of these different organizations, just like Postmates, just like a dozen other different companies. They weren't doing that friggin' 3 months ago. They just weren't doing it. I feel like we're making a difference. I feel like every little bit we're having these tough conversations, and it's changing the minds. But we have to keep having it. We can't afford to have this conversation every time a Black brother, every time a Black sister gets gunned down. We got to keep having these conversations. We got to keep having these conversations when one of us gun each other down. Like I said, I'm from a very small town, Gary, Indiana, and the crime rate is out of control. Every time I talk to one of my friends, I'm hearing that somebody else has passed away from a gun. We got to keep having those conversations too. Not just when somebody else kills us. We got to have those conversations when we're killing us, because it goes around, right? As long as we keep having the conversation and keep the education going, that's the good that I think that's going to come out of this.
Jeremy.
I pray and I hope that something good comes out of this. I feel like when this very first took place and this very first happened, I almost had a little bit of a 9/11 feeling. I thought started to see a little bit of mending and people coming together. And I started seeing, different races, on TV and peacefully protesting and saying, there's an issue, there's a problem. And I honestly had this light of hope, this ray of hope. And I said, man, this is like a 9/11 moment right here. Because the world came together after, this country came together after 9/11 like no other, at least in my lifetime. And then the looting and the protesting took over, and I sit back and now when I sit back and I watch the TV, I'm confused. I'm confused because this looting and this rioting, you're making your kids' generation, your kids' generation, and your kids' generations 10 times more difficult. Because they're the ones that are going to have to repair and fix and bring that all back up to ground zero and get it back up and running. We need positivity out of this. We need something to change. We need something to be better. That's the whole reason we're doing this, is so that we make a change. We make a positive change. And right now I'm just confused. I'm confused with everything that is taking place, with everything that's going on. Because, you have peaceful protesters are getting hurt. You have rioters, you have looters, you have Antifa doing this, and you have this over here. And there's just, and now I just sit back and I'm like, I'm not sure if anything good can come out of this. And this remark here, I don't mean this in a negative way, but I do not condone looting and protesting in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Because like I said, we are tearing down our own country. But I feel like as far as police brutality goes, yes, the next time they confront a black gentleman, an unarmed black gentleman, African-American gentleman, they will think twice before they use excessive. And that's how I see that.
Shalinda, thank you, Jim.
Well, I think about the Holy Week uprising is what they called it. It was the days that followed the assassination of MLK, and we about burnt down the country. But what happened afterwards? The Civil Rights Act. So to say that no good can come from this, history has shown us progress was made. I don't like that it happens in our country as a history of violence, right? 9/11 caused people to come together on 9/12. The assassination of MLK caused us to come together for the civil rights movement, the Civil Rights Act. What will become of all of this violence? I know that I don't agree with looting and rioting, but I was very upfront with all of my followers on social media that I, as a Black woman and the child of a Nigerian immigrant, I understand that feeling of those rioters out there who have lost all civility. They are beyond words. They're tired of talking. We have kneeled. We have sat on the bus. We have endured the fire hoses. We have watched as you injected our men with syphilis. We have watched as you Black Wall Street, when we tried to do our own thing and stay out of the way and build our own multiple generational wealth. You burnt down Tulsa, Oklahoma, that whole town, men, women, and children. So I understand that some of that is the buildup of 400 years of inequality. I personally am not going to go out there and act on it. What I want people to see is that the world came together. It wasn't just America. When you turned on the TV or looked on Twitter, you saw Paris, Amsterdam, Ireland. Some of their crowds rivaled our own, talking about Black Lives Matter. That was very encouraging. And as a mother, that's very encouraging, because you see this small movement of a forward moving world. They're saying, I'm over it. And I want us to constructively ride that wave of I'm over it, and find a way to turn that into something actionable. I don't know what it is, Chef, but something actionable that's tied to that being done with it.
Thank you. Raymond?
First good thing is the world's watching, so that's amazing. So I'm kind of like caveating off of what Charlinda said. The world is watching, so that's good. So the ball's in our court, so to speak. I just feel that we need to keep the world watching. I've talked to a lot of my friends. I've lost a lot of followers because for some reason, some of my patriotic crowd forgets that I'm Black. Like, I won't speak out on inequality. I will always do it. I don't care about no followers. I'll always speak my mind. I'm always outspoken. And I'm a father myself. I care about my daughter. I'm one of 5. I care about my brothers and my sisters. I care about everybody. I love everybody, but I also have to look out for my Black community. So, but what I'm saying is, I always see people stand up when there's a hashtag. I encourage people. I'm like, hey, I want you to keep fighting after the hashtag. My music has always been about, this is me 24/7. You can ask anybody. I've always been fighting for social injustice in the Marine Corps, outside of the Marine Corps, and because it's a nonstop fight. That's what needs to come out of it. A nonstop fight, a nonstop presence, a nonstop respect, not only for ourselves in the Black community, but also respect for others, so they can in turn respect the Black community, and then we could build from there. Then we could build those businesses up. That's why I don't agree with the rioting and looting, because I'm like, yo, we could have used this money to donate to some of these Black businesses, and we could have just protested. Now we're spending the money on fixing those Black businesses. I've seen lots of videos with Black businesses that were affected, literally broken down. People have spent all their life. I mean, I've seen videos from 1992 till now of Black business owners crying and pleading with the public, why did you bust up my business when I'm here for you? I started in the ghetto just like you, but yet you're breaking this down. So it's kind of like a lot of good, like, clarities coming out of this, a lot of education, a lot of just focus. A lot of people are saying 2020 is literally the year of focus, and be like, wow, they're not playing this time. Black community needs a little bit more focus globally, and we need to do our best to help the Black community, because the Black community is one of the major forces that made America. That's, Black people are American too. So I think a lot of the good stuff is going to be in the future, but we just can't stop now. We have to go past this hashtag.
Thank you. Tony.
I definitely agree with what everyone is saying. Everyone shares different perspectives. I think a lot of good is coming out of COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter movement, due to the fact that everyone is able to see it now, focus on, like, wow, these things are real issues, not like someone's dying on this Black person is dying today, this Black person is dying yesterday or the day before. This is like, these are issues that continue a pattern. Like Raymond said, 1992, you're looking at a riot that looks like 2020 riots. And we keep seeing propaganda play out in media, but at the end of the day, we are definitely going to come out on top, and we're going to have a little bit more focus on the Black community, and people are going to ask those questions, what can I do? And not only this, it's going to change policy, it's going to assist in new nonprofits to be established. They're going to be scholarships set up, like in long term, far as future, your kids are going to be good to go, and they're going to be mindful and of where it came from. So I think a lot of greatness is definitely coming out of this, despite the frustrated months and weeks that a lot of us have had. Even if it hasn't really hit us hard, it's hit us somewhere. And in the Black community, for us, we just need to hit them where the pocket's at. We're $1 trillion, especially Black women are the #1 consumers in America, spend trillions of dollars across the globe and within the U.S. So I think definitely a lot of greatness is coming out of this.
Thank you. So I'm going to go and ask another question, and it's going to be literally a 30-second question or less, right? I heard Jeremy talk about 9/11, and I can relate to that because I was there when the plane hit in the Pentagon. And I know how everything changed overnight. Like you said, Celinda, literally the next day, we became extremely patriotic. Everybody bonded together, and then eventually it dissipated. And then once a year, we did, and we remembered 9/11, right? And there was a divide. I use the word divide because it wasn't the glue like it was when that actual event happened, like it is now. Do you think after this settles down and all the good that comes from it, do you think that we as our community, we're going to stay together and focus like we are right now? Or will it go away until something unfortunately happens like this again? Jeremy.
I think this will eventually dissipate, and I think we will come together stronger and better. I think this is going to, like Charlinda said earlier, and Raymond touched on, the world is watching. The whole world has a front row seat to what's going on in America right now, what's going on in this nation. And I think at the end of the day, regardless of race, no American wants to come off the top of the mountain. And so I think, yes, I do think that this will dissipate, and I think we will bond and come together and be stronger, because like I said before, the businesses that are being burnt down and businesses that are being torn down and everything that's going on in the street right now, it's going to take this whole country to rebuild it. We're going to have to come together in order to make this a bigger, better country and get out of this hole that we're all in, regardless of race.
Tony, why?
I think yes. I'm definitely optimistic about positive changes and keeping the positive changes, because I mean, we got this generation that's after us. I mean, they are steamrolling this thing, right? They're steamrolling it. There's sometimes that I tell my daughter, you have got to slow down, right? And she represents their generation. So I definitely believe that the fight will continue as long as we keep talking about it, as long as it's just not the Black folk that are talking about it, as long as everybody keep talking about it and keep acting, then yes, I definitely think that that we'll see some resolution.
Shalinda?
I'm hopeful, even with things like riots and 9/11, it always inched us a little bit more forward. So I know that this is going to move us forward. I don't know when the end of racism will be, but like Tony said, I mean, I look at Twitter and I get giddy because of the young people and how over it they are. They're like, why are we still dealing with this? These old people, these old people out here still having racism problems. That's how they look at us. Like, we're ready for y'all to evolve, or, we're just going to let it fade out with y'all. So that makes me encouraged to see that the young people care about it. And then we have to do our part. Where we're at, especially if you are influential or you have some sort of power or influence in the government or in lawmaking, like, this is the time for you to shine. This is the time for you to go in there and make stuff happen and change stuff. When we see whatever administration it is, what do they do when they get in office? They start putting judges in place. Why? Because they're there for decades. And so they're doing their part to change the narrative for they're thinking long game. We have to think about the long game. We have to put impact where it's going to make a lasting impression.
Tony?
I was like, did I unmute? I don't know what else to say. I'm speechless on it because I'm always surprised at what we do on a daily basis. And I feel like as the African-American community, we always come together. And now we get to see everyone come together and be on one accord. And it's a beautiful feeling. I woke up smiling this day because I know that change is here and change is now. And we always have to look at the future because we're human beings. We're not going to live here forever. So make your stamp. Do what you have to do. You don't have to publicize everything. A lot of things can be in private, and you can manifest within your communities and do that across the board. I do that. And I think that's a healthy way to do it, is really, really get in tune with what your local governments and organizations can do for you. But I'm definitely hopeful for us, as always, as a human race, to come out on top and do what we do best. And that's show up and show out every time.
Raymond?
I think the energy will like dissipate a little bit, but I feel like that's vital that us as leaders in the Black community stay strong, stay educated, stay abreast, stay informed, so we can lead the next generation. But one of the things that I found that was the most useful in life that can apply to this situation right here with this whole Black Lives Matter and this whole riots and looting and protesting and social injustices. If you want to affect somebody for better change and you're talking to the opposition, just listen to them. That's what I always do. I listen before I speak. I listen and I say, hey, what's the issue? How are you feeling? And sometimes we may solve it right there in that conversation. And if not, we can do it in another conversation. But before us as leaders can go forth in the Black community and make sure this is something that's concrete and permanent, we need to listen to the youth and then act only after we have listened and understood what they feel the future should look like.
Thank you. So I'll put my word on that, and I appreciate everyone giving all their advice and opinions and being open demographically and unbiased on that part, and extremely very transparent. Me personally, I don't, of course, everyone knows I don't agree with the riots. I don't agree with looting and things, and I hate that it's indigenous that it is associated with us if something like this happens, right? And no matter what it's going to be like, and being very transparent, whether it was Caucasians or Latinos or Asians that's looting and it's only shown on media, it would always come back to the Black community. You know, that's human nature. That's the way media or just perception will. Each one of you made valid points and said on how we look at our Black community. We are with each other. I'll say it transparently on each part in accord that we can't build ourselves up and destroy us at the same time. If you can't take from our community to make a point about our community, you can't have people who work their whole entire lives that are fending for their families and feeding each other and doing that and call it part of the process. The process is going to be slow and steady, but you costing people their lives. You know, it was an officer that was killed who was defending from looters who are also Black. That's not the point. The point is that we are a community, right? And when I said no color, right, I don't see it because eventually they're going to run over. Someone somehow has helped me, has helped you, that has been our demographic and has come up with that part of it. I know that this, regardless of how bad, just like 9/11, it was and is, we're going to change. And we, like you said, Raymond, we are the leaders. Celinda, Tony, Jeremy, we're the ones that have to be relevant and prevalent and make that happen, regardless if someone agrees with me or disagrees with me. I appreciate each and every last one of you on this panel and everything that you do and contribute, not only for this panel, but in life, because I know instead of you being behind a keyboard just typing what we should do, you're out there in the community making it happen. And that's the difference between the community that's making things happen than just talking about it, even as a peaceful demonstration or making a thing. Unfortunately, we have to do things that are extreme and unnecessary, right? Things that I can't vouch for, to go into a Gucci store and steal all the Gucci bags and say it's what you need. Each person is accountable for their action. Those people that are doing that is not part of our community. Some people are just selfish, and some people actually need to feed themselves. And they're going to get milk for their kids, or they're going to do these things or whatever, right or wrong or however it is, we need to come together as that community. And I know people are not going to like what I say, or if they do, again, like Raymond said, I'm not here for followers or to get, I'm here for my community. I'm here because I'm a Black man and I have no friends of color, but they are strictly rainbow. So I thank each and every last one of you for this panel. I think I know that some good has come out of it. If there's any last thing that you guys want to say or how you can be reached, please do so. Jeremy?
Yeah, I would just like to throw something out there real quick. I put a post up on Facebook a few days ago that says, you can't change your morals and your values, etc., to fit a certain agenda. You know, something you shouldn't do. You can't have values and morals and they switch up and they change according, you know, just to fit a certain agenda. And so what I taught my kids, because the main focus right now is police brutality. Would everybody agree? Police brutality against, you know, Black African Americans. So my older children and I, we had a discussion, and this is the way I brought it to them, and it helped them. So if I can help one person through this right here, this message I'm about to put out, then in my mind, mission accomplished. I look at the police force as my favorite football team. And what I mean by that is, so I'm from Philadelphia, so I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. When Michael Vick did what he did, I was upset. I was mad. And, you know, I thought to myself, like, what are you doing? You know, you have the greatest life. What are you doing? What are you doing? So I was mad at Michael Vick, but that didn't stop me from becoming an Eagles fan. So and again, and it comes back to every organization, every place in life, you're going to have bad apples in that bunch. So am I going to leave that whole bunch, or am I just going to stop supporting that bad apple? And so I look at the police force as my football team. Those bad apples, I no longer want to associate myself with, but that's still my football team. They're still the ones that are supposed to be there to protect and serve the community. Every single player on that team is not a bad person. That team has good people on it.
Thank you. Tony, why?
I guess the only thing that I would add is I think that we're headed in a positive direction. I think that we all mean good. I mean, the people that are out there doing the rioting and the looting, they're hurt, and they are part of our community. We just need to do a better job in educating them. They're lost. They're disenfranchised. But with that being said, I think that there is hope. I think that there is hope for change. I am amazed by so many people that are not Black that are speaking up. Right? I'm amazed by it. There's certain people where I'm just like, oh wow, I didn't know that they felt that way. Or, you know, they're saying this on their platform. I'm also amazed by, you know, I make a post and then I look and I'm like, man, I'm down 1,200 followers just because, you know, I spoke out against police brutality, spoke out against, you know, one of our brothers being killed. And it's upsetting. And that's one thing that I take away from this is, you know, I won't shut up. I mean, as long as it keep happening, I'm going to keep being vocal about it. And I think as long as we all keep being vocal about it, that's how we're going to get the change.
Linda?
I was actually thinking about my family. So anytime there's strife in the world, I wish that it looked like my family. So my family has biracial, half white, half black, half Hispanic, half black, half Nigerian. We kind of look like, you know, We Are the World should be playing in the background. And it gives me hope that someday the world can look the way that my family does and have the good times and focus on things the way that my family just focuses on love and togetherness. I built my company Mutt Sauce based off of the teachings of my grandfather, who his call sign was Mutt. He was in Korea and Vietnam. That was his call sign for his ability to blend in anywhere. He had friends from all backgrounds. my charge in life, my why is legacy. I want to leave a better world, a better America than the one I grew up in. And that starts with the personal responsibility and commitment to instituting that change in the ways that I can control. So, you know, there's not a white owned, there's not a black owned Hunts and Heinz and Tabasco. I have to make one. You know, I have to make one. I have to pass on these things and financial literacy and all the things that are broken in our community, so-called broken. I have to fix it in ways that I can. And so I just want people to stay focused on that. What you can control is how you act, how you treat people. What you can control is how hard you work and what you leave behind. And so that's what I would just say. Stay focused on those things, because a lot of times we're so unfocused. You know, we spend so much time raging about so many things that actually ended up doing nothing, just sound and fury signifying nothing. So I want people to be focused on what they can do. And I would tell anyone who's watching this and are looking at how they can work with me, if you are a charity, I would love to commit some of my sales to your charity. If you're out there fighting the good fight, black, white, I don't care. As long as you're doing something for the forward progress of this country, I would love to work with you.
Thank you. Raymond.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Raymond again. What I would say is just my line's open. I'm just, you know, a voice, you know, of the veteran community, voice of the Black community, voice of the people, voice of America. So any contact you want to make with me via social media, go ahead, shoot me a DM. You know, we can talk if you're listening. Also, if you're a musician and you want to work with me because you want to address some important issues, you can reach me at the Marine Rapper. You know, my forte is music, and that's how we get all that information out. And you know, music has been therapy to so many different people. So that's my forte. I stay in my own lane. That's how I help people, especially through these hard times. So many of my artists have been doing stuff addressing these issues. So if you're an artist, or you just want to talk to somebody, or you just want to get my perspective, you can reach me at the Marine Rapper. Just know that, you know, I'm doing this for every single one of y'all. I love y'all. Light skin, dark skin, black, white, Mexican, Asian, whatever it is. I just want us all to come together so we all can make a better America. And I'm out. Peace.
Tony.
Tony with an I?
Yes.
Okay. You can reach me on Instagram at the Queen Motivator, Twitter, Queen_Motivator. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Tony Williams. I am motivator. I got the name from the Marine Corps because I was Moto. But I encourage people. I am your top resource person if you need help networking with different people within the veteran community and Black-owned business. I am their person. I am born to connect people. That's what I do. I'm good at it. If any veterans are in the DC area, hit up the DC Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs. I am the public information officer there. And we have an incredible team of veterans that you can work with. Even if you just have a question, you can call us or hit us up on that. But I'm the Queen Motivator, and I'm out.
Thank you, Tony. I am Real Chef Rush. I do 2,222 push-ups for those who can't. Army, military, Marines, Coast Guard, Air Force, men, women, white, black, anyone and every person that is relevant, even it doesn't matter, and especially for George Floyd and for all of you guys. So I want to thank all the panelists that was here today to give input and a perspective on our life, not only in the military, but outside the military. And if you notice, once this panel is over, we're still brothers and sisters. We're still family, as each and every last one of you guys should be. So with that being said, I thank you. Like the Marine Rapper, you can contact me and I answer all of my DMs. So enjoy your time, be good to each other, and be impactful. Thank you.